Imagine a criminal empire so incredibly massive, so deeply entrenched in the very fabric of a nation, that it literally had the power to rewrite a country's constitution. It's a history that completely blurs the line between a single man and an absolute monopoly of terror and wealth. In this explainer, we're going to trace the terrifying rise, the unimaginable wealth, and the incredibly violent collapse of the Medellín Cartel. And of course, the man who stood at the absolute center of it all, Pablo Escobar. Okay, let's dive right into this. Because to truly understand the sheer, terrifying scale of Pablo Escobar's power, we have to look at the money. By the late 1980s, Escobar had an estimated peak net worth of $25 billion. That officially made him the seventh richest person on the planet at the time. To really put that into perspective, Colombia's entire gross domestic product back then was right around $39 billion, meaning one man literally held the equivalent of nearly 65% of his entire country's GDP in his own pockets. That is just staggering.
So where exactly did this endless river of wealth come from? Well, he controlled a massive 80% of the entire United States cocaine market. Think about that. He wasn't just some participant in the international drug trade, no. He was the undisputed king of cocaine. And this absolute monopoly, it generated an unfathomable amount of cash. At the absolute height of his empire, Escobar was bringing in $420 million every single week.
You know, the logistics of managing this kind of wealth are almost surreal. Just counting physical currency literally became impossible, so they simply started weighing the cash in kilos instead. They were spending $2,500 a month just on rubber bands to hold the stocks together. And because the money was hidden inside these damp warehouse walls, rats ruined nearly $2 billion of his earnings every single year. And they just wrote it off as a simple cost of doing business. In fact, while he was on the run, Escobar famously burned millions of dollars in cold, hard cash simply to keep his daughter warm.
Part 1. The Ascent. Calculated Ruthlessness.
The story of Escobar really is a dark masterclass in how a desperate, impoverished criminal transforms into an international kingpin. Driven by extreme poverty and this wild vow he made to become a millionaire by age 25, Escobar saw the explosive profit potential in cocaine back in the 1970s. But his strategy was brutal. Step 1. Eliminate the competition. In 1975, he ordered the assassination of Medellín's biggest local trafficker, Fabio Restrepo, and then forcibly absorbed all his men. Step 2. Consolidate power. By 1976, alongside the Ochoa brothers and Carlos Leather, he forged the infamous Medellín Cartel. But listen, this wasn't just a street gang. This was a lethal, highly organized corporate empire. To feed the completely insatiable demand of the United States, the cartel's logistics were just as ingenious as they were relentless. We're talking cocaine smuggled inside airplane tires, hidden inside televisions, even stuffed in the bellies of fish. Pilots were getting paid a staggering $500,000 reward per flight. And the empire swelled so fast, it soon included submarines, private aircraft fleets, and even a completely private purchased Bahamian island, Norman's Cay. He essentially created a direct, unstoppable smuggling highway straight to the shores of Florida. Of course, this endless stream of narco dollars funded an unbelievably lavish, untouchable lifestyle. He built Hacienda Nápoles, a sprawling 7,000-acre estate where just the land alone cost $63 million. It had a private airport, a bullfighting arena, and even a private zoo filled with rhinos, hippos, and elephants, all illegally smuggled into Colombia on his private planes. But here is the truly profound irony of this massive empire. Despite surrounding himself with literally thousands of kilos of product, Pablo Escobar never actually consumed cocaine himself.
To protect this massive kingdom, Escobar implemented a terrifying, absolute philosophy: plata o plomo, silver or lead. Basically, every police officer, judge, or politician faced a very simple choice: accept an exorbitant bribe and become unimaginably rich, or refuse, and not only will you be murdered, but your entire bloodline will be erased. This grim ultimatum put almost the entire nation's official infrastructure right into his pocket.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how this absolute power created a highly fractured, deeply manipulative public persona. To the impoverished citizens of Colombia, he was seen as a Robin Hood. He was building hospitals, housing, and soccer fields, essentially buying this fierce public loyalty. But right behind that philanthropy was a ruthless terrorist. This is a man responsible for over 4,000 murders over his career, including more than 600 police officers, all just to maintain his iron grip on the country.
But this dual existence completely shattered when Escobar actually attempted to enter legitimate politics. After being exposed by Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, Escobar retaliated with a brazen assassination in 1984, and this triggered a bloody literal war against the Colombian state. By 1985, he was funding guerrillas to lay siege to the Supreme Court, burning massive amounts of criminal records. And by 1989, his cartel was literally blowing commercial airliners out of the sky, killing over 100 innocent people on Avianca Flight 203, all just to target one single political rival.
Part 2. War against Colombia. You see, this wasn't about protecting a business anymore. It was an all-out war fueled by one absolute paralyzing fear: extradition. Escobar knew that with his billions, he could easily bribe or shoot his way out of any Colombian prison. But a U.S. federal penitentiary, that was a black hole he could never escape. He was so incredibly desperate to stop the Colombian government from signing an extradition treaty with the United States that he made a surreal offer. He actually volunteered to pay off Colombia's entire national debt out of his own pocket, a staggering $10 billion, just in exchange for canceling the treaty. But when the government refused his money, he unleashed unprecedented terror. The atmosphere across Colombia became completely claustrophobic. Citizens were just paralyzed by fear. Escobar's cartel orchestrated hundreds of bomb blasts in major cities. They systematically assassinated judges, journalists, and leading presidential candidates. It was simple. If you spoke out against extradition, you were a target. His singular obsession, the driving force behind this horrible climax of violence, was encapsulated perfectly in his own chilling words. "A grave in Colombia is better than a jail cell in the United States." This wasn't just a quote. It was a dark prophecy he was willing to burn his entire country to the ground to fulfill. Eventually, the violence reached such a fever pitch that in 1991, the Colombian government actually relented, officially banning extradition. So Escobar surrendered, but under some wildly absurd, insulting conditions. He got to build his own prison, La Catedral, and it was basically a 5-star luxury resort with imported furniture, a bar, and a full soccer field, all guarded entirely by his own cartel hitmen. And the craziest part? From the comfort of this quote-unquote prison, Escobar seamlessly continued smuggling 15 tons of cocaine a day. Part 3. The Final Hunt: Collapse of an Empire. Escobar's ultimate hubris would soon become his undoing. After he escaped an attempt to move him to a real military prison in 1992, he triggered the most intense manhunt in global history. Let's move to the next phase and see how this builds, because the net closing in on him was just massive. You had the search block, this elite Colombian police force. You had the DEA, bringing in advanced American tracking technology. And then you had Los Papes, a ruthless vigilante death squad funded by the rival Cali cartel. With a massive 2.7 billion peso bounty on his head, Los Papes began brutally slaughtering Escobar's associates one by one. Now, the king of cocaine somehow managed to evade capture for a year and a half. But on December 1st, 1993, while hiding out in a safe house in Medellín, he made a fatal mistake. It was his 44th birthday. Overcome by the isolation, he stayed on the radio telephone for just a little too long, talking to his wife and children. And that's all it took. American technical intelligence units intercepted the signal and pinpointed his exact location. The very next day, December 2, 1993, the search block raided the building. A rapid, absolutely chaotic shootout erupted. Escobar and his bodyguard attempted to escape by sprinting across the terracotta rooftops of Medellín, but they were immediately met with a massive hail of gunfire. The billionaire drug lord, a man responsible for the deaths of thousands, was brought down in a matter of seconds. Although, to this day, a lingering theory persists that the final fatal bullet was actually fired by Escobar himself, choosing his own grave in Colombia over a cell in America. The aftermath perfectly captured his highly fractured legacy. While governments around the world celebrated the death of a monster, over 25,000 impoverished Colombians flooded the streets of Medellín, weeping for their Robin Hood. Pablo Escobar built a kingdom of immense wealth and unspeakable horror. But his story leaves us with an incredibly haunting question. When a criminal's empire so completely eclipses the state itself, does the fear ever truly die with him?